Hey, what's up? This is going to be an extremely quick tutorial over how to get information from an API using Python. This is one way to do it. I'm sure there are several implementations, and this is only going to be about getting data. There are four CRUD. Well, you know what? Let's talk about it here. We'll take it all from square one. So you're going to see some words thrown around. The one you're probably most familiar with is URL. That stands for Uniform Resource Locator. In this case, the resource is the data that you'll be pulling from your API. So it's also the URL that you and I use when we go to, say, google.com. We're saying, hey, computer, I want you to get the data that's being served at google.com. Well, with APIs, you use a resource as well, and they send back data relative to where you're going. So what's an API? It stands for Application Programming Interface. And it serves data to any kind of application. This could be a front-end application, like your web browser. It could be one server talking to another server on the back end. It could be, this could be any kind of computer application on the front. That's talking to the API. So it could be servers talking to each other. It could be your browser or a different front end speaking to the API and getting data to display on your screen. There's also something called an endpoint. You're going to see this a lot in the API documentation you look at. So an endpoint is the specific spot, the URL, where the API's data is served. So you'll see things in the API documentation that say, let's pretend we're working with Twitter. It'll say get/tweets/all, right? This would be the endpoint, and it would be the spot where we're talking to. Now there would be a longer Twitter. This is hypothetical. API interface another .com. Something like that, where it's served. But in general, the thing that's going to change is where you're accessing it. So there are going to be multiple endpoints based on what you need. So we could say maybe there's an endpoint for a username and all their tweets. This is, again, all hypothetical. There's also other things in the acronym is CRUD, which is create. I forget what the R is for, but it's to post data. That's the actual API function. Update, delete. I bet you can guess what delete is. It's not post for the R, but there's a R word that basically means post. And the actual words you'll see in your API software for these are get, post, put. This is update. That's kind of the only weird one, because everyone knows what it means to post data. But putting data means you go to the API, you find the data, and you edit it, and you change it in the database that the API is working with. And then delete is the final one. You can probably guess what that does. There are some APIs, like when you delete a tweet, it needs to talk to Twitter's servers and delete that tweet and get it gone. Remove it from the database so that people who grab your data from the database anymore won't see that tweet. So these are the core four functions of almost every website. They're the core four functions of every API, and you're going to get used to them. Today we're just going to talk about get. We're going to talk about snagging information, and this could be, you could talk to a weather API and get the information about the weather from their database and then display it somewhere. This could be an API with, say, cute pictures of dogs. There are APIs like that. This could be a Twitter API that's getting you a bunch of tweets. This could be a cryptocurrency exchange API that's getting you price information or volume information of cryptocurrency trading. So there's a lot of things that an API can be used for, and it's all very open-ended. But this is a general look at what's going on. There would also be endpoints, and you'll see this when you look at API documentation that say, I want to post a tweet to, say, my username, right? And then you would send all the data that's included in a tweet as part of your API request. And this is what happens when you make a post. And that is then saved in the database, and it's a new tweet. This is out of the scope of today's video. We will probably get there with time. So let's go over a quick example. Now to do this, I did have to talk about I had to get some basic packages. I'm still running Python 2, which is getting an end of support very soon, and that's not ideal, so it's probably all right for you to be using Python 3. There's a very basic walkthrough here in the README, and all this information is going to be linked on GitHub in the description of this video. It's very intimate. I confess that I am still running an old Python. There's something in Python called pip. I don't know what pip stands for, but it's basically a package manager. Python installation protocol. Package installation for Python. Both fine guesses, and I'm sure they're very close semantically to what it is. On Linux, you will install pip using the sudo apt-get command. One of these relative to your Python version. And once you have pip, you will have access to Python packages. Now, packages, these are also called dependencies sometimes. They're little programs that do very common things. So if there's a functionality you want to add to your Python app that's not built into the Python language, there's usually a module if it's a common enough thing you're doing. So say accessing an API is something that any program that needs to talk to the internet needs to do. So there's a package for that. So once you have pip installed, if you have Windows or Mac, this probably works on Mac, but if you have Windows or Mac, you can look up on Google a proper way to install the pip relative to your Python version. If you don't know your Python version, you can just go to your command line and type Python -v. You can't see that -v. I don't know if that's on my custom VS code, but it is there. It's just extremely dark. Now this tells you you're running Python 2.7.11 from December 5th, 2015. That's probably not very secure. That's not ideal. Don't be like me. So, we are going to install a module from pip called requests. Requests is this Joe API interaction set. It'll let you do get. It'll probably let you do post, put, and delete. I haven't looked through the documentation for those yet, but it seems very good, very simple. That's what we'll be using today for our get requests. So you would type, and I had to do this on Windows to get all the building correctly. I thought I would just have to do this, but this part was key in terms of getting my Windows to actually build and correctly install the path to the modules. So you would type Python -m pip install requests. If I do this, we should get a great deal of text that basically says you already have it. Let's take a look. Yeah, requirement already satisfied. Fantastic. There's actually a number of packages associated with requests. One of them's called requests, right? There's also one that deals with character detection. That's another package that requests is using, and it's a part of it. There's something called URL lib, which probably has to do with URL interpretation. These are all great things. So those are now on my system and set up. They were before. Let's assume, here's my deprecation warning. Let's assume you didn't have those. They would be installed now. You'd get maybe some more ugly text spewing out in your console, but that would be about it. So we are ready to code some Python and interact with an API. I'm going to open an empty document here. It's called api-example.py, and we're going to import requests. Oops, I definitely don't think I need the semicolon in Python. I've been writing a lot of JavaScript lately, so expect me to write a lot of JavaScript instead of Python. You know what? That's my bad. We will also import JSON, although I'm not sure if that's even necessary. Then we're ready to use requests. So we're going to instantiate a new variable. It's going to be called response, not a very creative variable. And it's going to be equal to requests.get. Get is a function built into the requests module. I don't know if you've worked much with Python, but you could say import math. There's a math module, and then you'd be able to use like advanced math functions. It would be math.square root, math. Whatever else. So in this case, we're calling a method that's in the request modules. It's called get. We're calling requests.get, and we're going to go to, I don't know, everyone likes space travel. I spelled requests wrong. Everyone likes space travel, so we will do requests.get to http://API open notify.org. Now let's just grab this data right here, actually, because I don't want any typos. Boom. So this is telling us which endpoint we're going to. We are going to this URL, which is going to hopefully be set up as an API endpoint so that when we send our GET request, we get a response back. In fact, before we do that, let's do a different example. I'm going to cut that for a moment, and we're going to go to flarging. Okay? And then we will not console.log, there's that JavaScript. We're going to do a friendly print command of response.status code. So response is an object, and status code is going to be one of the properties of that object. It's a key. And this should tell us, we'll see if this is familiar. We will run this program with Python API example.py. Lordy, I did not save it. We're going to clear that and pretend that it wasn't already. Let's run that again. Get a gross error. Well, that's very interesting. Something to be learned there, I'm sure. That may be because of my garbage that I put there. So instead, we will put a real URL and hope we get something real. We will do a print response.status code. We'll save that. We will run our file, and hopefully this time we'll get something a bit normal. There we go. We got 200. 200 means, okay, you got a response. Now, our response has more than just that, but the status code is something very common and standard. Now, let's mess this up. Will this work? Let's find out. There we go. This is a status code you're likely more familiar with. This means that the resource was not found. So, 404, I'm sure you've gotten 404 pages when sites are down or when you get a bad link to something. You're also going to get these when you get API requests. 400s are failures. You can look up what each code means. 200s are successes. So 200 means we got an object back. Let's go ahead and run this one more time. Make sure we're getting that 200. Fantastic. So our API request is successful. So let's take a look at something else. Let's get a little deeper into the data. Let's print response.text. This should be our response object, and it should be the actual data we're pulling. If you're talking to Twitter, this would be the tweets that you've pulled. If you're talking to a cryptocurrency API, this would be the data associated with or an exchange API. This would be the data associated with the trading that you're accessing. We can run our Python program again, and here we see that we've gotten an object back. I forget precisely how objects render in Python. This is what's called JSON, or it's close to JSON. These braces indicate that we're looking at a single object. Everything before a colon is a key, and what comes after the colon is a value. This bracket indicates an array. In Python, they're called lists. It's just an ordered set of things. So we have an object, and the people key is set to this array. Let's find where it ends. It ends here. We've got a great deal of people in our array. we have Christina Koch. She's on the International Space Station. We have name keyed to the value Alexander Skvortsov. And we also have the value craft for that object. And he's also on the International Space Station. So what can we do with this then? Well, you'll notice this is very similar to objects in any coding language. It has key, value pairs, and then that there are array-like or list-like structures that hold multiple things. So this array is made up of multiple objects, and each one has a name and a craft. If this was, say, cryptocurrency prices, you'd have your ticker, you'd have a price, you'd have maybe a volume with an associated volume. So how are we going to get at each of these unique pieces of information? Well, we're going to do some more printing for now so that I can show you. Let's print. Actually, let's parse this first. We can parse this into an object, a JSON object that we can look through a bit better in Python using the JSON import that I put up on line 2. Let's make an object called astroobj, and that's JSON.loads. It's the loads command associated with the JSON package. Response.text. It's saying, hey, I've got this big bunch of text. I want you to make it into a JSON object for me. And then we can access that like we would another object, looking at things by key. So you'll notice there is a message of success. What happens if we print astroobject with the key of message? I'm going to comment these two lines out so that we only have one print statement to look through. We'll clear this out too, and we will Python API example.py. And here we go. This is the astroobj sub message. Oh, I did not save this. That's my problem. There we go. So now we're just getting success. You'll notice in this object there's a key called message, and I am accessing that key. That key, the string message, is keyed to the word success. So what if I were to get people, the people key? What would you expect to be returned? You don't need to wonder for long, because I will show you. If we look for the people key, all we get back is this string, or this array rather, this list in Python of people. And there's this guy, this guy. Don't worry about these U's. That indicates Unicode, and that is has to do with the text. If you were to print these things, I don't think that would be pertinent. In fact, we can find that out together as well. So this is a list. What if we look at the first item in this list, or the 0th item rather? Come on now. There we go. Oh, this is not happy. Invalid syntax, string. So this is a string right now, which is unfortunate, but something that we can convert to a list. I would need to consult the Python docs right now. Wait, why are you complaining? Oh, maybe that was just related to my old code. Yeah, this seems to be fine. Let's see if this gives us the first person in the list. My hope is that it will, and that this is treating it like a real good data type. Fantastic. So the 0th item, or the first item in our list, is craft ISIS, or ISS, name Christina Koch. Great. We now, let's say, let's do a little more advanced data manipulation for you, and we'll say this is our Christina object. Am I spelling her name right? She at least deserves that. She risked her life. And we'll make that equal to what we just returned here in the console. To make sure that's working, we'll first log the Christina object. Clear this out. And we will run our program. Oh, I did not save it actually, so that's the old code. But this should give us the same output. It does. Great. Now, let's test the Unicode together. I'm pretty sure that despite the ugly U there, if I look for craft, I will just get back the correct string. Let's find out. Great. So I've now said on this object, I want the value associated with the key craft. And associated with the key craft is the string ISS for International Space Station. So here we have used an API. We've called a get on this API endpoint and received a JSON object. We've manipulated it a bit to get at more specific data that we want to work with. Now, if your application is just displaying data, this should be enough. If you need to talk to another API, we'll need to use post. We might need to use delete if you need to send data or manipulate the data they have in their database. But most API functions are about pulling in information that they have for you from their database. And this should be enough to get you started messing around with APIs in Python. I appreciate you watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and make sure you do some push-ups and have a great day. Bye.